Welcome to the Sleepless Historian. If you find relaxation in exploring the gentle whispers of history, consider liking and subscribing to this channel. You might also want to turn on loop, so our journey together can repeat softly in the background. Ora. As you settle in, dim the lights around you. Feel the weight of your blanket as it envelops you gently. Adjust your pillow, allowing it to cradle your head softly. Take a slow, deep breath in and release it, feeling your shoulders relax. Yari. Today, we will explore a topic that is, at first glance, exceedingly mundane. We will delve into the intricate scheduling of snack breaks in the Roman Senate. Yes, snack breaks. This topic may seem trivial, but within it lies a tapestry of routines, protocols, and the subtle interplay of time and appetite. Imagine the Senate, a vast hall filled with senators clad in their togas, gathered to debate matters of great importance. Yet, amidst the weighty discussions of laws and governance, there existed a peculiar rhythm, a diligent schedule for when to indulge in small bites of food. Little by little, we will uncover the specifics of these schedules, the precise time set aside for nourishment, often in stark contrast to the demands of their deliberation. Picture the senators, poised for debate, their minds racing with the matters at hand, yet their stomachs whispering for sustenance. We will explore how these breaks were meticulously planned, detailing the measurements of time, the etiquette surrounding food, and the logistics of serving snacks during discussions. As we embark on this gentle journey through the corridors of history, allow yourself to relax more deeply. Breathe in slowly, and let the details of Roman life wash over you. Soon, we will discover how the senators navigated the delicate balance of hunger and duty. In a world where the timing of a snack could seem slightly off. So, settle in and allow yourself to drift into the soft cadence of history. As we delve deeper into the serene world of the Roman Senate, let us focus on the routine of their snack breaks, which, despite their mundanity, played a vital role in the daily lives of these esteemed senators. Picture the senators, cloaked in their flowing togas, seated on intricately carved benches made of warm, polished wood. The air is thick with the scent of parchment and ink, yet, intriguingly, there is also the faint aroma of food. Snack breaks, often referred to as nundinae, were scheduled at specific intervals throughout the day. These breaks were not arbitrary. They were meticulously planned. Senators would typically gather in the Senate Hall early in the morning. The debates would commence shortly after sunrise, at around the 4th hour, which corresponds to approximately 10 o'clock in the morning. As discussions progressed, the senators' focus would occasionally wane, their thoughts drifting to their rumbling stomachs. Thus, around midday, a break would be called. This interlude, lasting about 30 minutes, was designated specifically for light snacks. The timing was crucial. It was a time to refresh both body and mind, yet all too often, the schedule felt misaligned with the flow of conversation. No noise. During this break, the senators would partake in simple foods. Imagine a table set with platters of bread, perhaps loaves of soft white wheat or coarse barley, each sliced into manageable pieces. There would be dishes of olives, their glossy skins glistening under the gentle light filtering through the halls. Simple cheeses, aged and crumbly, would be placed alongside. Well, these snacks were not merely sustenance. They were a means of fostering camaraderie and easing the tensions of debate. The etiquette surrounding these moments was as significant as the food itself. Senators were advised to nibble quietly, to maintain decorum, even in such informal setting. It was expected that while one might reach for a piece of bread, they would do so delicately, ensuring that crumbs did not scatter across the polished surfaces. Well, now, let us consider the logistics of serving these snacks. The responsibility fell to a group of attendants, known as servi. These industrious individuals would prepare the food beforehand, meticulously measuring and portioning each item. They would gather the ingredients from local markets where prices were noted. For instance, a loaf of bread might cost a mere 2 denarii, while a selection of olives could be procured for 4 denarii. On the day of a Senate meeting, the servi would arrive early, setting up the table with practiced ease. They would arrange the platters symmetrically, ensuring that each item was displayed attractively. The bread would be placed in the center, surrounded by olives and cheese, creating a visually appealing spread. The process of serving was methodical. First, the attendants would present the food to the senators, bowing their heads slightly in respectful acknowledgement. Then the senators would choose their snacks individually, selecting pieces that caught their eye while engaging in conversation. As the senators munched quietly, the conversations would often drift back to the matters at hand. Yet, the rhythm of eating was not always conducive to serious discussion. It is said that the best ideas often emerged during these breaks, as minds relaxed and creativity flowed with the simple act of nourishment. Let us take a moment to breathe in this tranquil scene. Imagine the gentle clinking of plates, the soft rustle of togas as senators shifted slightly in their seats. The atmosphere was one of shared purpose, yet there was an undertone of levity, a fleeting moment of reprieve from the weighty decisions they faced. After the 30-minute interlude, the senators would return to their discussions. However, it was common for debates to stretch long into the afternoon. As the sun arced across the sky, the senators would often find themselves in need of another break. The afternoon snack, although less formal than the midday pause, was still a traditional part of their routine. Around the 7th hour, or approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon, a second break would occur. This break would sometimes be filled with simple yet satisfying foods. Think of a platter of figs, their sweet scent wafting through the air, or perhaps a bowl of honeyed nuts, sticky and rich with flavor. And the preparation for this second break mirrored that of the first. The servi would once again gather, ensuring that fresh snacks were available. As the time approached, there would be a soft murmur of anticipation in the room. Senators would shift slightly in their seats, glancing toward the entrance as the attendants prepared to serve. During this second break, the mood would often lighten. Laughter might occasionally punctuate the air, as senators exchanged stories and shared light-hearted banter while they chewed. Yet, even amid this relaxed atmosphere, the essence of decorum remained. Senators were still expected to maintain composure, to enjoy their food without forsaking their roles as dignified statesmen. As we picture these moments, let's pause briefly to consider the significance of these snack breaks in the larger context of Roman society. The very act of sharing food during a Senate session reflected the values of community and unity. It was a reminder that even amidst the gravitas of political discourse, there existed a shared humanity. Senators, much like you and I, had basic needs that sometimes took precedence over their lofty aspirations. And so, as we drift through these historical details, let us take another breath. Inhale slowly, and exhale gently. The rhythm of life in the Senate continues, punctuated by these moments of nourishment. Now, as the afternoon wears on, the senators would often return to their discussions. Yet, the issue of timing remained a delicate balance. The precise moments for nourishment did not always align with the urgency of debate. Many senators found themselves torn between the desire to address pressing matters and the need to satisfy their hunger. In this gentle ebb and flow of conversation and contemplation, we see a remarkable aspect of Roman life. The scheduling of snack breaks, while seemingly mundane, was an intricate dance of logistics and etiquette. Senators navigated the delicate balance of duty and desire, their routines shaped by both custom and necessity. With each passing hour, the Senate Hall remained alive with the murmurs of debate, punctuated by the soft sounds of quiet eating. The rhythm of their days was established by these small acts of sustenance, echoing through the corridors of history. So, dear listener, allow the gentle cadence of these words to wash over you. Picture the senators, engaged in their discussions, their minds dancing between ideas and morsels, as we slowly and gently continue to explore the exceedingly mundane history of Roman Senate snack break scheduling. As the sun cast its gentle light over the forum, the senators would often begin their day with a quiet ritual. The early hours were filled with anticipation as they gathered inside the Grand Senate House. The air was thick with the scents of parchment and ink, mingling softly with the aromas of freshly prepared food. Each senator, dressed in their flowing togas, carried their responsibilities with a sense of purpose, yet they could not ignore the call of their appetites. The process of scheduling the snack breaks was an art in itself. Originally, the breaks were not formally established. Instead, they evolved through necessity and consensus. Senators would find themselves pausing during long debates, subtly glancing at the sundials outside, which marked the passage of time with unwavering precision. The sun, moving steadily across the sky, served as a reminder to take a moment for nourishment. Food was often simple, yet carefully chosen. The offerings varied depending on the season and local resources. In the warmer months, fresh fruits like figs and grapes were plentiful. They were washed in cool water and laid out on elegant platters, their colors vibrant against the marble tables. The senators enjoyed these small, sweet bites, their juices refreshing against the heat of discussion. In contrast, the colder month saw the introduction of hearty breads, often baked in the early dawn. These loaves, dense and warm, were brought in by servants who understood the importance of timing. The bread was sometimes accompanied by a small dish of honey or a selection of cheeses, crafted with care by local artisans. The texture of the bread, the sweetness of the honey, combined to create a delightful experience that nourished both body and mind. With each morsel consumed, senators would engage in a delicate dance of etiquette. It was considered proper to partake of food only after the most pressing matters had been addressed. Yet, the hunger in their bellies often begged to differ. Senators would wait patiently, their plates before them, while others spoke passionately about matters of state. The actual timing of these snack breaks remained fluid. They were often dictated by the ebb and flow of conversation. A particularly engaging topic might lead to long stretches of debate, pushing the snack break further into the day. Senators would glance at each other, exchanging knowing looks silently agreeing that the importance of the day's discussions outweighed their immediate desires. As the minutes turned into hours, the first signs of hunger would manifest. Quiet murmurs would ripple through the room, a reminder that sustenance was needed. At this point, some senators would excuse themselves, stepping out briefly to partake in a small meal. This. The preparation of food was handled by a dedicated group of servants who understood the preferences of each senator. Some preferred their figs unadorned, while others enjoyed them sprinkled with a touch of salt. The attention to detail was paramount. Each fruit was inspected carefully before being brought to the Senate Hall, ensuring that only the finest pieces were served. The process of serving food was equally meticulous. Platters were arranged with care, each item placed with precision. A servant would step forward, bowing slightly as they presented the food to the senators. The gesture was a sign of respect, a reminder of the hierarchy that existed within the Senate. Each senator would take a moment to acknowledge the offering, a soft nod of appreciation before returning to their discussions. In this environment, timing was of the utmost importance. The senators understood that their discussions could not be interrupted for too long. Thus, snack breaks were often brief, lasting no more than a few moments. Senators would savor each bite, their minds still engaged in the conversation at hand, even as they chewed slowly and deliberately. The conversations themselves were often punctuated by the sounds of soft eating, the quiet crunch of bread, the gentle plucking of ripe fruit. All added a layer of warmth to the otherwise serious atmosphere. Senators would often interject with comments about the food, sharing their preferences, or recalling a fond memory tied to a particular dish. Amidst this delicate balance, the issue of cleanliness was also paramount. Senators were mindful of their appearance and the impression they made. As they enjoyed their snacks, they would do so with a sense of decorum. Napkins, crafted from fine linen, were placed carefully in their laps, ready to catch any crumbs. The logistics of food storage were equally fascinating. Large amphorae made of clay were used to store oils and other essentials. These were carefully sealed to preserve the contents, ensuring that the flavors remained intact. In addition, wooden racks were built to keep the fruits elevated, preventing them from bruising. Each rack was placed in a cool, shaded area, away from the harsh rays of the sun, prolonging the life of the offerings. In the weeks leading up to important discussions, senators would often discuss their preferences, hinting at the types of foods they wished to see on the table. This was done subtly, with gentle comments woven into the fabric of their conversations. "It would be delightful to have figs during our next gathering," one senator might say, while another would nod thoughtfully, perhaps remembering a particularly sweet batch enjoyed during a previous session. As the hour approached for a break, the anticipation within the hall would grow. Senators would lean in closer, voices softening as they shared thoughts, all while keeping an eye on the sun's position. The rhythm of the day dictated their actions, guiding them as they moved from debate to nourishment. With a quiet signal from the presiding officer, the moment would arrive. Senators would pause, the weight of their discussions lingering in the air as they made their way to the platters. Each senator moved deliberately, their movements graceful as they selected their bites. It was a ritual that brought a sense of calm amidst the seriousness of their duties. As the food was consumed, the conversations would continue in a more relaxed tone. The energy in the room shifted, the weight of the day's discussions momentarily lifted. Senators would share anecdotes, laughter sometimes bubbling up, breaking the somber atmosphere. Yet, Even in these lighter moments, the underlying current of responsibility remained. Uh, this gentle interplay between sustenance and duty encapsulated a unique aspect of Roman life. It was a reminder that even within the halls of power, the simplest of needs could influence the most intricate of discussions. And so, as we drift deeper into this exploration, let the images of senators enjoying their modest feasts guide your thoughts. Allow the gentle cadence of these words to wash over you. Picture the senators engaged in their discussions, their minds dancing between ideas and morsels, as we slowly and gently continue to explore the exceedingly mundane history of Roman Senate snack break schedule. No, my man. Elia, oh, Dante. As the senators settled into their seats, the gentle clink of pottery and the soft rustle of togas filled the air. Each senator had their preferred plate, a shallow terracotta dish carefully marked with their personal insignia. These small details were essential, for in a room filled with esteemed leaders, even the choice of dish could reflect status and tradition. The plates were often filled with simple fare, items that were easy to consume and did not require elaborate preparation. The arrangement of food was meticulous. A common selection might include olives, which were often arranged in neat rows, their glossy surface catching the light. The senators would reach for these morsels, plucking them with practiced precision. They would often enjoy them alongside small, soft cheeses, perhaps a fresh ricotta or a tangy goat's cheese. These items were commonly available in the markets, often purchased from local vendors who knew the senators by name. The price of such items was modest, yet the quality was always paramount. A small dish of olives might cost just a few denarii, while a selection of cheeses could be slightly more expensive, perhaps reaching up to 10 denarii for the finest varieties. It was customary for each senator to contribute to the communal meal, pooling their resources to ensure a diverse selection of food. This process required careful planning, as schedules were tight and time was limited. No. Each session of the Senate was typically scheduled to start at the first light of dawn. This meant that by the time the senators assembled, they had already begun to feel the pangs of hunger. The first discussions would commence with fervor, yet as the morning wore on, the need for sustenance would become increasingly evident. It was during these moments that they would glance toward the platters, silently gauging when it would be appropriate to interrupt the flow of debate for a brief respite. In the Roman tradition, there was a careful etiquette surrounding eating within formal settings. Senators were expected to maintain decorum, even while partaking in the simple pleasures of food. It was seen as essential to wait until the presiding consul or magistrate had signaled a break. This often involved a gentle clearing of the throat, a subtle yet powerful cue that the time for nourishment had arrived. Once this signal was given, senators would rise with deliberate slowness, allowing for a smooth transition from the serious tones of debate to the more relaxed atmosphere of dining. As they moved to the platters, they would often select a piece of bread, a staple in Roman diets. The bread was typically made from coarse grains, sometimes mixed with barley or spelt, offering a hearty texture. The senators would break off small pieces, taking care to avoid any crumbs that might fall onto their togas. This was important, for one's appearance held weight in the Senate, and a well-kept toga was a mark of respect and propriety. Once seated again, the senators would savor their selections, engaging in light conversations. They would discuss not only matters of state, but also the latest happenings in their personal lives. Sometimes, tales would emerge of recent travels, the various provinces they had visited, or the intriguing people they had met. These anecdotes bridged the gap between business and pleasure, creating a sense of camaraderie and shared experience. The duration of these snack breaks was carefully managed. Each break would typically last around 15 minutes, although it often felt much shorter. Senators would glance at the hourglass placed at the center of the table, its fine sand slipping through the narrow neck, measuring their time with gentle insistence. The sound of the sand was almost hypnotic, a rhythmic reminder of the passage of time, urging them to enjoy their food but also to remain mindful of their duties. The hourglass was constructed of finely crafted glass, a product of skilled artisans. Its base was made from polished wood, often inlaid with delicate patterns representing the Senate's history. Each senator would take turns adjusting the hourglass, a small but significant act that signified their investment in the proceedings. As the sands flowed, senators would begin to feel the gentle pull of responsibility. They would slowly finish their snacks, ensuring that they left their plates tidy. It was customary to leave a small portion of food uneaten, a sign of abundance and generosity. This practice reflected the Roman values of moderation and respect for resources, echoing the principles that guided their governance. Once the hourglass signaled the end of the break, the senators would return to their discussions. They would clear their throats, adjust their togas, and refocus on the matters at hand. The room would quiet once more, the air thick with the scent of olives and bread, mingling with the incense often burned in the chamber. Wendy. In this way, the interplay of food and debate created a rhythm to the day. Senators would debate bills while their hands occasionally reached for a morsel, a piece of cheese or an olive, that would find its way into their mouths with little thought. The act of eating became almost instinctual, a necessary pause that allowed their minds to process the weight of their discussions. The scheduling of these breaks was not without its challenges. Senators would often debate the timing, with some arguing for longer breaks, while others preferred to keep discussions flowing. It was a delicate balance, one that required careful negotiation and understanding of each other's needs. As a result, the timing of snack breaks became a matter of contention, often leading to discussions that were as intricate as the policies they debated. Some senators would insist on breaking at mid-morning, while others argued for a later break, allowing more time for pressing matters. This back and forth echoed the broader dynamics of the Senate, where differing opinions were a natural part of the process. In the end, it was the simple act of eating that provided a momentary escape from the complexities of governance. Senators would find solace in the routine of sharing food, the gentle clinking of pottery, and the soft murmurs of conversation. These moments were essential, grounding them amid the weight of their responsibilities, allowing them to recharge before diving back into the depths of debate. And so the cycle continued, a soothing rhythm of discussion, food, and laughter, punctuated by the gentle flow of time. As we reflect on this exceedingly mundane history of Roman Senate snack break scheduling, let us imagine the senators, their plates filled with simple yet nourishing food, their minds engaged in the delicate art of governance, all while maintaining a sense of calm and order. And as the senators would begin to feel the weight of their responsibilities, They would also start to contemplate their next meal. The process of planning these snack breaks was imbued with a sense of routine and structure. It was not merely a matter of hunger. It was an event, an essential part of their daily rhythm. The senators would often gather in small groups to discuss the timing of their breaks. They would use simple yet effective tools, such as a sundial, to observe the position of the sun in the sky. This ancient instrument would cast a shadow that indicated the time of day, helping to determine when it was appropriate to pause for sustenance. The sun's movement was a reliable guide, and the senators would often agree to meet at the third hour after sunrise, which roughly corresponds to mid-morning. This was a time when the morning discussions had reached a natural pause, allowing for a brief respite. As they planned, they discussed the types of food that would be served. The senators favored simple yet satisfying dishes, often opting for bread, cheese, olives, and fresh fruits. The bread, made from wheat, would be baked in communal ovens. The process of baking was meticulous. The wheat would first be ground into flour, then mixed with water and a pinch of salt. This dough would rise, resting for several hours, before finally being formed into loaves and placed in the hot oven, where it would emerge golden and fragrant. Now, they would often source their ingredients from local markets, where merchants displayed their wares on wooden tables, arranged meticulously to entice passers-by. Fresh olives, glistening in their briny cures, would be purchased by weight, often carefully measured on simple scales made of bronze. A small scoop would be used to transfer the olives into clay jars. The prices of these items were modest, often discussed with a gentle bartering. A loaf of bread might cost a few denarii, and a jar of olives a bit more, depending on the quality and the season. Fresh fruits, such as figs and pomegranates, would also find their way onto their tables, adding color and sweetness to the spreads. The fruit would be carefully inspected, as the senators preferred only the ripest selections, their skins smooth and bright. I see. Once the menu was established, the senators would delegate responsibilities for the procurement and preparation of the food. Some would take on the task of visiting the markets, while others would ensure the necessary utensils were ready. The utensils were simple yet essential: wooden platters for serving, clay bowls for holding the olives, and small knives for slicing the bread and fruit. The senators understood the importance of etiquette during these breaks. They would often remind one another of the customs to be observed. It was considered polite to wait for the host to begin the meal before serving oneself. Additionally, sharing food was a sign of camaraderie and mutual respect. As the time for the break approached, the senators would gather in a designated area, typically a shaded courtyard adorned with potted plants and low benches. This space was chosen for its tranquility, providing a serene backdrop for their discussions. The gentle rustling of leaves and the soft chirping of birds would create a calming atmosphere, enveloping them in a cocoon of comfort. The senators would settle down, their plates filled with the carefully prepared offerings. The bread, still warm from the oven, would be torn into pieces, shared among the group. The cheese, often crumbly or soft, would be placed on platters, while the olives rested in their bowls, glistening under the sun. As they enjoyed their meal, the senators would engage in light conversation. They would discuss matters not of legislation, but of daily life, sharing stories of their families, the weather, or recent events in the city. This light-hearted banter served to strengthen their bonds, reminding them of their shared humanity amidst the weight of governance. The duration of the break would typically last an hour, allowing ample time for both nourishment and relaxation. After the meal, they would often take a moment to reflect, enjoying the calm before returning to the rigors of their duties. The senators would lean back on their benches, their shoulders relaxing as they savored the lingering tastes of their snack. Then, as the hour drew to a close, they would begin to tidy up. The plates would be collected, and the remnants would be disposed of in designated areas, where the remains would be taken to feed animals or composted for future crops. The senators understood the importance of cleanliness. It was a reflection of their respect for the food they consumed and the environment they inhabited. I'll be... After cleaning up, they would return to their seats in the Senate chamber, ready to resume their discussions. The transition was gentle, as they took a moment to settle back into their roles. The sounds of the chamber would gradually return, the soft murmur of voices rising and falling like the tide. Yet, even as they resumed their debates, one could sense the lingering satisfaction from the break. The food nourished not only their bodies, but also their minds. It allowed them to approach their discussions with renewed energy, their thoughts flowing more freely, their ideas more cohesive. This cycle of nourishment and discussion created a harmonious rhythm, one that echoed through the halls of governance. As they delved back into the intricacies of policy, the senators would often reflect on their time spent sharing a meal. It was a reminder of the simple pleasures in life, a reminder that amidst the gravity of their responsibilities, moments of respite were essential. The act of enjoying food together fostered a sense of unity, an unspoken agreement to support one another in their shared tasks. And so, the senators would navigate the delicate balance of snack breaks and serious discussions, learning to harmonize their needs for nourishment with their dedication to governance. Little by little, they crafted a routine that was both satisfying and effective, allowing them to thrive in the intricate world of Roman politics. The sun would continue its journey across the sky, marking the passage of time. Shadows would lengthen and shorten, guiding the senators in their daily activities, while they remained focused on the tasks at hand, ever mindful of their next meal. In this way, the mundane act of planning snack breaks became an essential thread in the tapestry of Roman governance, slowly and gently, intertwining nourishment with the art of debate. As the senators settled into the rhythm of their daily routines, they would begin to contemplate the logistics of their snack breaks with a meticulous focus. The planning of these breaks often fell to a designated praetor, a senator chosen for their organizational skills, who would take careful note of the needs and preferences of their peers. This praetor would be responsible for gathering the necessary supplies, ensuring that every detail was accounted for, and every senator's palate was considered. The praetor would begin their task early in the morning. They would stroll through the bustling streets of Rome, moving at a leisurely pace, taking in the aromas of baked bread and roasted nuts wafting from the market stall. Each vendor had their specialties. Some sold olives marinated in fragrant herbs, while others offered succulent figs, sweet and plump. The praetor would make a mental note of the vendors, knowing that good relationships with merchants were essential for the quality of the snacks. Once at the market, they would engage in gentle bargaining, a practice that was both an art and a necessity. The praetor would discuss prices, ensuring that they acquired snacks at a reasonable cost. A handful of olives might fetch a price of 2 denarii, while a small basket of figs could be acquired for 4 denarii. Each transaction was conducted with care, a slow exchange that allowed for respect to flourish between the buyer and seller. With the snacks gathered, The praetor would return to the curia, the Senate House, where the senators would assemble to discuss matters of state. The praetor would lay out the snacks on a long wooden table, polished to a gleam from years of use. This table would serve as a symbol of unity, a gathering place where ideas and nourishment intertwine. As the senators arrived, they would notice the arrangement of snacks, each carefully placed to invite engagement. The smell of fresh bread would mingle with the scent of ripe fruit, creating an inviting atmosphere. The senators would then partake in a moment of quiet reverie, appreciating the provision before them. Oh, say, the act of snacking was not merely an indulgence. It was a ritual steeped in etiquette. Senators would wait patiently for the praetor to signal the start of the break, a gentle nod that would allow them to begin. This moment was significant, for it represented a brief pause, a chance to step away from the weight of legislation and debate. During these breaks, conversation would flow more freely. Senators would share not only food but stories of their lives, slowly and gently, weaving personal experiences into the fabric of their political discussions. A senator might bite into a piece of bread, savoring the crunch, while another would share a tale of their youth, perhaps growing up near the Tiber River, where they learned to fish. The gathering and sharing of snacks could last for several minutes, often around 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the topics at hand. Senators would nibble on almonds or sip from clay cups filled with watered wine, allowing the flavors to linger on their tongues. Little by little, they would recharge, preparing themselves for the return to serious matters. Once the break concluded, the praetor would gently remind everyone of the time, ensuring no one lingered too long. They would offer a soft reminder, "Let us return to our duties." The senators would then rise from their seats, brushing crumbs from their robes, and taking a moment to gather their thoughts. 9. The snacks, though simple, became a part of the senator's day, woven into the larger tapestry of governance. The snacks would be stored in a designated area of the curia, a cool stone chamber where the leftovers could be preserved for future use. Here, the scent of herbs would mingle with the remnants of meals past, creating a comforting aroma that lingered. This chamber was equipped with wooden shelves, each labeled for easy access. The praetor would ensure that any leftover snacks were carefully wrapped in cloth and neatly placed for later enjoyment. This attention to detail kept the snacks fresh and ready, an assurance that they would always have something to share. As the days passed, the practice of snacking became more refined. Senators began to develop preferences, and the praetor learned to cater to these desires. Some preferred sweet snacks, while others leaned towards savory. The inclusion of dried fruits became a popular choice, particularly during the summer months when fresh produce was scarce. The balance of flavors was crucial. A well-prepared table would feature a variety of snacks, allowing each senator to find something to suit their taste. The inclusion of honey, for instance, became a favorite addition. A small pot of honey would be placed on the table, inviting senators to dip their bread, creating a delightful contrast of sweetness and warmth. In the cooler months, roasted chestnuts would find their way into the mix, the nutty aroma filling the air, enhancing the comfort of the gathering. Senators would find joy in the simple act of peeling the chestnuts, slowly and gently, enjoying the warmth as they broke the shells apart. Even the utensils used became a matter of routine. Small wooden plates would be utilized for serving, each one carefully hand-carved, smooth to the touch. Senators would appreciate the craftsmanship, feeling the contours of the plates as they served themselves. Over time, a schedule began to emerge. The praetor would allocate specific times for breaks, ensuring that they coincided with the natural rhythms of the day. Snack breaks would typically be scheduled mid-morning, around the third hour, when energy levels began to wane. The senators would settle into their chairs, knowing that a brief respite was just moments away. These scheduled breaks not only provided nourishment, but also became a time for reflection. Senators would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the aromas surrounding them. They would close their eyes for a brief instant, focusing on the flavors they were about to enjoy. Each bite would be savored, a small piece of tranquility amidst the storm of political discourse. As the day progressed, the senators would return to their discussions, invigorated by the nourishment they had shared. The interplay of food and conversation would guide their thoughts, allowing for greater clarity and focus. Slowly and gently, they would dive back into the intricacies of their responsibilities, the mundane act of snacking having prepared them for the tasks ahead. Owen shy. And so, the senators of Rome navigated their days, balancing the weight of governance with the lightness of shared meals. Each snack break was a moment of peace, woven into the fabric of their work, reminding them that even in the most serious of endeavors, a touch of simplicity could bring a sense of calm. Wow. The rhythm of their routine continued, the cycle of gathering, sharing, and discussing as they crafted not just policies, but also friendships, strengthened by the most ordinary of acts, eating together. As the senators settled back into their discussions, the echoes of laughter and quiet conversations faded into the background. The room, now infused with the lingering sense of the snacks they had just enjoyed, took on a different atmosphere. The tools of their trade, the scrolls and tablets, lay before them, waiting patiently to be engaged once more. Each senator, with their own unique style, would reach for their writing instruments, styluses made from fine materials, some crafted from the smoothest wood, others from lightweight metal. These tools, simple yet effective, were essential in documenting their thoughts and decisions in a precise manner. I say, the senators would often have a designated table for their writing materials, organized meticulously to ensure that everything was within reach. Each scroll, neatly rolled and stored, would be labeled with fine ink, indicating its contents and date. They understood the importance of order in their work. A well-maintained workspace contributed to a calm mindset, allowing for a more focused debate. Slowly and gently, they would unroll their scrolls, feeling the textured papyrus beneath their fingers, inviting them back into the world of ideas and policies. As discussions continued, the senators would often refer to their notes, scribbled in the margins, reminders of previous thoughts or points of contention. These notes were a blend of clarity and chaos, capturing the essence of their conversations. Each senator would have their own method of organization, perhaps preferring to write in a particular color or using symbols that only they could decipher. The rhythm of writing, the scratch of the stylus against the papyrus, became a soothing backdrop to the more intense exchanges that would follow. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of the Senate, a world of food preparation continued to hum quietly. The kitchens, bustling with activity, were overseen by skilled cooks who understood the delicate balance of flavors and nutrition. They would gather fresh ingredients, herbs like basil and thyme, vegetables such as carrots and radishes, ensuring that all offerings were of the highest quality. Each ingredient was weighed carefully, measured in small quantities, ensuring that every dish maintained its integrity. A kitchen task that was often overlooked was the exact timing of food preparation. It was known that food needed to be served at the right moment. Too early, and it would become cold. Too late, and the senators would lose their appetite amidst the swirling discussions. The cooks, therefore, would strategize their work, creating a timeline. They would begin the preparation while the senators were still engaged in their debates. As the conversations heated, the cooks would gently saute and simmer, creating aromas that wafted through the air, inviting the senators' attention back to the dining table. Mais foul. Ahi. Elisabeth. Dasfil. Gamen. Oh. That. At the appointed time, the servers would bring forth the dishes, each one carefully plated. They would arrange the food with an artist's touch, creating a visual feast that was as inviting as the aromas surrounding them. The plates would often include small portions, allowing each senator to sample a variety of flavors without overwhelming their senses. The senators, upon pausing for their next snack break, would express appreciation for the meal laid before them. They understood the etiquette of dining. They would wait for everyone to be served before beginning their meal together. This shared moment, although brief, was significant. It reinforced their camaraderie and respect for one another. Slowly and gently, they would lift their utensils, each senator engaging in the ritual of tasting and savoring. A moment of stillness amidst the governance that surrounded them. The act of eating itself was a practiced routine. Each senator would take small bites, allowing the flavors to unfold slowly. The soft crunch of fresh vegetables, the tender warmth of bread, and the delicate sweetness of fruits would mingle on their tongues. With each bite, they would pause to converse lightly, discussing not only the matters of state, but also the flavors and textures of the food. The simple act of sharing a meal became a bridge, connecting them in their duties while grounding them in the present moment. As they munched on their snacks, the senators would often reflect on the prices of such provisions. The marketplace held an array of goods, and the senators knew the importance of fair trade. They would remind themselves of the quantities they required, often discussing the costs associated with feeding their assembly. Prices could fluctuate, and it was the responsibility of each senator to ensure that their needs were met without overstepping the boundaries of budgetary constraints. During these moments, one could hear the soft rustle of tunics as senators leaned closer to exchange thoughts, their casual posture indicating a relaxed atmosphere. The gentle clattering of utensils against plates created a rhythmic soundscape, punctuating their conversations. It was a cozy symphony of governance, food, and fellowship. The senators, indulging in their snacks, would also pay attention to the logistics of storage. There were designated areas within their halls for the preservation of food. Clay jars filled with grains, sealed tightly to ward off pests, were arranged neatly on shelves. Fresh produce would be kept in cool, shaded areas to maintain its crispness. The careful management of supplies was crucial. It ensured that the senators could always find nourishment when needed. As the discussions came to a close and the last bites were taken, the senators would begin to prepare for their next session. They would wipe their hands on linen napkins, soft and finely woven, a small luxury that enhanced their dining experience. These small details mattered, creating an environment of comfort and respect. Slowly and gently, the senators would rise from their tables, feeling refreshed and ready to engage once more in the duties that lay ahead. The rhythm of their day would continue, a cycle of conversation and nourishment intertwining seamlessly. Snack breaks, while seemingly mundane, served a greater purpose, offering moments of reprieve. They reminded the senators that even amidst the weight of governance, there was space for simplicity and connection. And so, As the senators returned to their discussions, their minds were fortified by the shared experience of food, the taste of camaraderie lingering with them. They would once again immerse themselves in the intricacies of policy and debate, the gentle cadence of their routine, carrying them forward, little by little, slowly and gently. In Hawaii, as the senators settled back into their seats, they would often glance at the small hourglass placed strategically on each table. These hourglasses were crafted from polished wood, their glass chambers filled with fine sand. The senators understood that time was as important as the food they had just consumed. The gentle tick of the sand falling, grain by grain, served as a reminder of the limited minutes they had before their next debate began. Each hourglass would typically measure a span of just 15 minutes, a perfectly curated duration for a brief respite. Such an interval was designed to allow for small bites, quiet conversations, and a moment of reflection. Senators would often time their snack breaks around the flow of conversation and the looming hourglass, ensuring that they returned to their discussions just as the last grains of sand slipped through. And the snacks themselves were stored in elegant ceramic dishes, adorned with intricate patterns reflecting the artistry of Roman culture. These dishes were often filled with an array of delicacies. Fresh figs, sweet and plump, would rest beside small bowls of olives, glistening and rich in flavor. Occasionally, a selection of cheeses, firm and fragrant, would be included, cut into neat wedges, their edges smooth, inviting the senators to indulge in a moment of leisure. The organization of these snacks was no small task. A dedicated server or attendant would ensure that each dish was replenished regularly. It was customary for them to arrive quietly, moving with a grace that did not disturb the ongoing conversations. They would carry their platters, balanced perfectly on one hand, showcasing a selection of snacks that had been prepared earlier in the day. Preparation often began at dawn, when the first light filtered through the kitchen's small windows. Cooks would gather fresh ingredients from local markets, each item selected with care. The figs, for example, were sourced from nearby orchards, plump and sweetened by the sun. The olives were cured carefully, their rich flavors coaxed from the brine, while the cheeses were aged to perfection, their textures varying from soft and creamy to firm and crumbly. The prices for these ingredients were maintained at a reasonable rate, ensuring that the senators could enjoy their snacks without concern for excess expenditure. A small amount of gold coins would typically suffice to procure a week's worth of supplies. The careful management of resources ensured that each snack break was not only a moment of nourishment, but also a responsible exercise in fiscal duty. Once the ingredients arrived, they would be stored in large jars, each labeled meticulously. The jars themselves were made of clay, cool to the touch, and would line the shelves of the kitchen. Cooks would frequently check these supplies, ensuring freshness and quality. Every meal and snack required attention to detail, as the senators deserved only the finest provisions. As the senators returned to their discussions, the server would have already prepared their tables for the next round of debate. Linen tablecloths, soft to the touch, would be smoothed out, laying a fresh canvas for the deliberations to come. Each senator had their own designated place, ensuring that the flow of conversation would remain uninterrupted. The seating was arranged carefully, with an understanding that certain senators preferred specific positions. Some preferred the edges of the table, where they could easily engage with others, while others sat more centrally, drawing more attention to their perspectives. The arrangement was almost ceremonial, ensuring that each voice was heard, echoing through the chambers like a gentle whisper. Deso, Davi, Desa. Once settled, the senators would often reach for their small glass cups, filled with a refreshing drink, water infused with herbs or perhaps a light wine. The cups were small and delicate, requiring a gentle grip. Each sip was savored, a moment of tranquility amidst the serious discourse. The ritual of sipping, of pausing to taste, was an important aspect of their routine. It offered a moment for contemplation, a chance to reflect on what had been discussed and what lay ahead. The senators would often close their eyes, allowing the flavors to linger, their minds wandering through the complexities of statecraft. I know, there's more. After a few moments of silence, they would begin to re-engage, their voices rising softly, a gentle murmur of ideas shared and debated. The rhythm of the conversation would rise and fall, much like the tides, ebbing and flowing, with pauses punctuating the air, allowing thoughts to settle. As the discussions progressed, the senators would occasionally reference their hourglasses, mindful of time's passage. With each grain of sand that fell, they would adjust their focus, directing their attention toward the most pressing matters at hand. And these intervals of pause were not just about food and drink, but rather a deliberate choice to foster a deeper connection among the senators. The act of sharing a meal, however small, encouraged collaboration and camaraderie. The etiquette surrounding these breaks was equally important. Senators would often wait for their peers to be seated before beginning to eat. They would serve one another, offering figs or cheese, ensuring that everyone was included in the shared experience. The act of serving was a gesture of respect, a statement that each senator valued the presence and contributions of their colleagues. During these moments, laughter might occasionally echo softly through the chamber, but it would be gentle laughter, a harmonious blend of voices that complemented the serious nature of their work. Each chuckle was fleeting, a brief release of tension before returning to the solemnity of governance. Slowly and gently, they would remind themselves of the importance of balance. The snacks were light, often consisting of fruits, nuts, and cheeses. Each choice was designed to sustain energy without overwhelming the mind. It was understood that heavy meals could lead to lethargy, a state that was best avoided in the midst of vital discussions. As the session continued, the senators would periodically pause, allowing for small bites, quiet sips, and thoughtful glances. Each interaction was a thread woven into the fabric of their day, creating a tapestry of governance that was both intricate and deliberate. The atmosphere in the chamber was one of focus and calm, with the gentle sounds of conversation mingling with the soft rustling of linen napkins and the clinking of small cups. Every detail mattered, from the arrangement of the tables to the selection of snacks, all contributing to an environment conducive to thoughtful debate. The snack breaks, while simple and unassuming, were a testament to the care and deliberation that characterized the Roman Senate. And so, with every bite taken and every sip enjoyed, the senators immersed themselves in the rhythm of their day, balancing nourishment with duty, a dance of conversation that echoed through the ages. Little by little, slowly and gently. In the midst of these moments of sustenance, the senators would often find themselves adhering to an unspoken ritual, a gentle choreography of snack breaks seamlessly integrated into their proceedings. There was a particular time, a rhythm of sorts, that they followed as they engaged in their governance. Each session in the Senate was marked by a schedule that accommodated both debate and nourishment, a careful balance crafted over years of practice. Pow! As the sun rose over the forum, casting a soft glow through the lofty columns, the senators would gather, their togas draping gracefully as they took their designated seats. The wooden tables were arranged meticulously, with small plates and cups positioned just so, ensuring that each senator had easy access to the chosen snacks. The plates were crafted from fine pottery, adorned with simple yet elegant designs, reflecting the artistry of the era. Before the first discussion began, a dedicated servant would enter the chamber, carrying a tray laden with the selected provisions. This tray, a sturdy wooden piece, bore the weight of small bowls filled with olives, nuts, and an array of cheeses. Each bowl was carefully measured, ensuring that there was just enough for all to partake, yet not so much that it would encourage excess. The cheeses were often sliced into perfect little wedges, resting delicately on the plates, their aromas mingling with the cool air of the chamber. Nay, the senators would engage in a brief moment of quiet, allowing themselves to inhale the scents of the offerings before diving into their duties. The act of selecting a snack was not merely a personal choice, but a communal experience, one that subtly fostered camaraderie even amidst the gravity of legislative discussions. Each senator, in turn, would reach for an olive or a piece of cheese, savoring the flavors that would accompany their thoughts. As the first debate commenced, it was customary to set a timer. A small hourglass placed at the center of the table, its grains of sand slipping through one by one. This timer marked the rhythm of the session, dictating when to eat and when to speak. The senators knew well that the hourglass would allow them a brief window for quiet snacking before the next wave of discussion began. Each grain of sand represented not just time, but the flow of ideas and the ebb of conversation. The senators, with their focused minds, would often glance at the hourglass, watching the sands trickle down, a reminder of the fleeting nature of their discussions. Once the last grain fell, the ritual would shift. The snacks would be set aside, and the chamber would fill with the sound of voices, rising and falling in measured tones. Following the initial debate, there would be a lull, a moment where senators could reflect on what had been said. It was during this lull that the snacks would return to the forefront. After a careful assessment of their thoughts, the senators would look to their plates once more, reaching for a small handful of nuts or a slice of cheese, delighting in a brief respite before the next topic arose. The gentle crunch of nuts and the soft texture of cheese provided a grounding sensation, creating a calm oasis amidst the flow of governance. This cycle of discussion and consumption continued, punctuated by the rhythmic flow of the hourglass. The senators were aware that each snack break was brief, yet essential, a moment of reprieve that allowed them to recharge their minds. They understood that the balance of nourishment and intellect was delicate, and they respected the needs of their bodies as much as their duties to the state. As the day wore on, the sessions would often extend into the late afternoon. The sun would begin its descent, casting elongated shadows throughout the chamber. At this time, the senators would find themselves reaching for the final offerings of the day. The plates, which had once brimmed with a variety of snacks, would soon start to dwindle. The last few olives, the final pieces of cheese, and the remaining nuts would be shared among them, a communal act of fellowship that transcended their individual roles. At this hour, a gentle shift occurred in the atmosphere of the chamber. The discussions would become softer, the voices more melodic as the senators leaned into the collective rhythm of their day. They would often reminisce about earlier debates, recalling the positions taken and the nuances of their arguments. And within this shared space, the act of snacking became a quiet tribute to their collaboration, a moment to reflect on the work done and the work yet to be completed. Ales, the small cups, previously filled with water or diluted wine, would also find themselves replenished. A servant would quietly circulate, ensuring that each senator had a refreshing sip to accompany their final bites. The clinking of cups and the soft murmurs of gratitude would fill the air, a soothing backdrop to the gentle flow of conversation. As the final hourglass trickled its last grains of sand, the senators would prepare to conclude their discussions for the day. They navigated the intersection of sustenance and governance with grace and intention. The snacks, simple yet effective, played an essential role in their ability to engage deeply with the matters at hand. The chamber, once filled with the lively sounds of debate and the rustling of linens, would gradually quieten as the senators leaned back in their seats, gently releasing the tension of the day. They would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the lingering aromas of the olives and cheeses, allowing the day's efforts to settle within them. With the final snacks consumed and the discussions winding down, the senators would rise slowly from their seats, their movements deliberate and calm. They would gather their belongings, ensuring that no remnants of their meeting remained behind. The plates, now empty, would be collected by the same servant who took care to handle them with respect, acknowledging the role they had played in the day's events. Each senator would exchange soft goodbyes, their voices low and soothing, each farewell a gentle reminder of their shared experiences. And as they departed the chamber, the echoes of their conversations lingered in the air, a testament to the delicate dance of duty and nourishment, an intimate waltz that defined their time together. Little by little, slowly and gently, the senators would leave the chamber behind, their minds enriched by the simple act of gathering to share ideas and sustenance. The history of their snack breaks, mundane as they may seem, reveals the intricate tapestry of Roman governance. A tapestry woven with care, attention, and a deep understanding of the human experience. Breathe. As the senators drifted away from their gathering, the remnants of their snack break would be meticulously attended to. The servant, trained in the art of subtlety and grace, would begin the process of clearing the tables. He would reach for the ceramic plates, each one crafted with care, adorned with simple yet elegant designs. These plates would have been made in local workshops, where skilled artisans spent hours shaping and glazing them to perfection. The servant would take each plate in hand, feeling the cool, smooth surface beneath his fingertips. He would gently stack the plates, ensuring that they did not clatter against one another, for even the slightest noise could disrupt the serenity that lingered in the air. The plates would be stacked with care, 3 upon 3, creating a stable column of polished pottery. Alongside the plates, the remnants of the meal would be collected as well. The olive pits, once nestled in their succulent fruit, would be gathered with precision. Each pit was a small testament to the flavors enjoyed, now waiting to be disposed of in a discreet manner. The servant would hold a small cloth bag for the pits, its fabric soft yet durable, allowing for easy transport without the risk of spills. In addition to the plates and pits, the remaining bits of cheese would also be collected. The cheese, perhaps a rich pecorino or a creamy burrata, would often leave behind crumbs that needed to be swept away. The servant would carry a small hand broom, its bristles made from fine fibers, allowing it to glide along the table's surface with ease. He would sweep gently, gathering the crumbs into a neat little pile before transferring them to the cloth bag with the pits, each action deliberate and calming. As the tables were cleared, the senators' discussions would still echo softly in the chamber. The air, now slightly cooler, carried with it the subtle scent of olives and aged cheese. The servant would pause for a moment, inhaling this aroma. It was a comforting reminder of the shared experience that had just unfolded. The servant would then make his way to the pantry, a cool and shadowy space that housed the remaining food supplies. The pantry was lined with shelves, each one filled with jars and containers labeled with care. Glass jars filled with preserved fruits, herbs, and spices would gleam softly in the dim light. The servant would slide open the wooden door, its hinges creaking ever so slightly, a sound that seemed almost meditative in its own right. Once inside the pantry, he would set the collected items down on a sturdy wooden table. This table, worn smooth from years of use, served as the heart of the pantry. Here, the servant would sort through the items, carefully placing the plates back into their designated spaces. Each plate had its own spot, ensuring that the pantry remained organized, and that everything was easy to find for the next gathering. Nay! The cheeses would be placed into a cool storage box, crafted from cedar wood to maintain freshness. The box had been designed with small air holes, allowing for circulation while keeping the contents protected from pests. The servant would carefully wrap each remaining piece of cheese in linen cloth, a practice that allowed it to breathe, ensuring that it retained its rich flavor and texture. This process, though simple, was essential. It required attention, patience, and a gentle touch to ensure that the ingredients would be ready for the next occasion. As the servant worked, he would take a moment to inspect the pantry shelves. He would check the supplies, making a mental note of what needed to be replenished. Olive oil, a staple in Roman kitchens, would be inspected. The servant would lift the glass jug, feeling its weight in his hands, assessing the level of oil inside. The oil, golden and fragrant, would be used for dressings and cooking, and it was vital to keep a well-stocked supply. And then, with a soft breath, he would place the jug back on the shelf, its spot marked by a faint indentation in the dust. A gentle wipe with his cloth would clear the surface, ensuring that the pantry remained clean and inviting. Little by little, he would continue this careful inspection, checking for grains and legumes, the staples of Roman diets that would often accompany the senator's meals. He would listen to the soft sounds of the pantry, the rustle of the cloth, the gentle thud of jars being placed back on the shelf, the whisper of air as he moved. Each sound blended into a peaceful symphony, a reminder of the routine that sustained the senators. Once the pantry was tidied, the servant would shift his focus to the schedule of the next gatherings. The Roman Senate had a rhythm, a predictable pattern that dictated when discussions would occur and when the nourishment breaks would be taken. These breaks were often scheduled at specific intervals, allowing senators to refresh their minds and bodies. The schedule was kept on a simple parchment, carefully rolled and stored in a corner of the pantry. The servant would retrieve it, his fingers brushing against the soft paper, feeling the slight texture of the ink as he unfurled it. Each day was marked clearly, with notations indicating the timing of snack breaks. The careful handwriting reflected the importance of these moments woven into the fabric of governance. The breaks were typically set for mid-morning and mid-afternoon, aligning with the natural rhythms of the day. Senators would gather around the tables, their discussions flowing seamlessly from one topic to another, often pausing to savor the snacks. These pauses were intentional, allowing for reflection and contemplation. Each snack break was not merely a time for food, but a sacred ritual, a moment to nourish both the body and the mind. As the servant studied the schedule, he would notice the recurring items that featured in the snacks. Olives, cheeses, and fresh bread were constants, staples that provided comfort and satisfaction. The prices of these items were also noted, reflecting the careful budgeting that was essential for such gatherings. The cost of a jar of olives, perhaps 2 denarii, was reasonable, while a fine cheese might command a price of 5 denarii, a small fortune in the grand scheme of the Senate's budget. And then, slowly and gently, the servant would place the parchment back in its resting place, ensuring it was secure for the next round of planning. He would take a moment to breathe, to appreciate the simplicity of his task, the quiet importance of maintaining order in the pantry. In the stillness of the pantry, the routine of the senators unfolded like a quiet lullaby, a rhythmic pattern of gathering, discussing, and nourishing. Each aspect of their snack breaks was filled with purpose, weaving together the threads of daily life in ancient Rome. As the servant finished his duties, he would step outside, the cool air greeting him, a gentle reminder of the world beyond the pantry. As the sun began its slow descent, casting a warm glow over the bustling heart of Rome, the senators would prepare for their gathering. The time for deliberation approached, and with it, the anticipation of a snack break, a momentary pause in the rhythm of debate. The servant, having completed his tasks in the pantry, would now turn his attention to the schedule laid out before him. He would approach the table, his mind focused on the details, the small yet significant elements that made up this daily ritual. Ow! The parchment was slightly worn, creased from previous consultations, and it bore the marks of many hands that had traced its edges. Each senator had their preferences, and their requests were recorded with care. A careful balance had to be struck between availability and variety, ensuring that each gathering was both satisfying and efficient. The servant would reach for a stylus, its tip delicately poised above the parchment, ready to inscribe the names of the senators alongside their chosen snacks. In this moment of quiet responsibility, he would take a deep breath, allowing the stillness to fill his lungs. The stylus would glide over the parchment, forming the letters with practiced ease. Gaius preferred figs and honey, while Marcus would always request a selection of nuts, their earthy flavors grounding his thoughts. Each item was noted, alongside the estimated quantity. A handful of figs here, a small bowl of nuts there. The servant understood the importance of moderation. Too much food could distract from the gravitas of the discussion, while too little might leave the senators feeling unsettled. Now, he would gently tap the stylus against the parchment, as if contemplating the weight of each choice. The prices were noted as well. Figs might cost 1 denarius per pound, a small expense when compared to the richer delicacies that could easily run to 3 or 4 denarii. Nuts, depending on their variety, could also fluctuate, but a modest bowl would typically be acquired for about 2 denarii. He would pause, allowing the numbers to settle in his mind, reminding himself that every detail mattered in maintaining the order of the Senate. Once the choices were inscribed, the servant would take a moment to reflect on the logistics of the gathering. He would visualize the arrangement of snacks on the table, the vessels that would hold them. Small terracotta bowls were preferred for nuts, their rustic texture complementing the grains of the table. Figs, however, required a more delicate touch. A shallow dish made of glass, perhaps, to showcase their rich purple hues and succulent sweetness. Slowly and gently, he would imagine the senators reaching for the figs, the soft pressing of their fingers against the fruit, the gentle tearing of flesh yielding to reveal the honeyed interior. As he contemplated the vessels, he would remember the importance of cleanliness. Each bowl had to be washed meticulously, the residue of previous gatherings scrubbed away with a soft cloth, ensuring that the flavors of one meeting did not linger into another. The servant would visualize the process, filling a basin with clear water, the gentle splash as he immersed the bowls, and the rhythmic motion of his hands, cleaning each curve and edge. A small amount of olive oil was often used to polish the vessels, leaving a soft sheen that caught the light. After ensuring the vessels were prepared, he would turn his attention to the storage of the snacks themselves. The pantry held shelves lined with jars and baskets, each labeled with care. Olives were stored in brine, their sharp tang enhanced by the herbs that floated within. He would think of the jars, their smooth glass surfaces reflecting the flickering light of candles, as they awaited their time to grace the senator's table. Each jar contained its own world, the rich aroma of preserved olives wafting through the air, inviting curiosity and delight. The cheeses, too, had their designated places. Wrapped in cloth, they rested on wooden shelves, aging gracefully. The servant would note the importance of rotation, ensuring that the fresher cheeses were always served first. A gentle reminder of the passage of time, how cheese transformed, growing sharper, more complex in flavor. He would recall the way the senators savored each bite, the soft cheese crumbling between their fingers, contrasting beautifully with the crunch of bread. Speaking of bread, the servant would also plan for its inclusion. Fresh loaves were delivered each morning, their golden crusts promising warmth and sustenance. He would envision the baker kneading the dough, the rhythmic pounding creating an echo in the quiet morning air. The scent of baking bread was a comfort, an invitation to gather and share. As he considered the loaves, he would jot down the number needed, ensuring that each senator would have enough to accompany their snacks, the bread serving as a vehicle for flavors. And upon finalizing the list, the servant would step back, allowing a moment of stillness to wash over him. The gathering would take place soon, and he could already hear the soft murmur of voices rising, the senators settling into their seats. He would remind himself to check the timing, ensuring that the snacks were laid out just before the break in the discussion. Too early would lead to impatience, and too late could dampen the mood. The balance was delicate, a dance of preparation and timing, one that required the utmost attention. As the hours passed, the servant would feel the weight of his duties, but also the warmth of purpose. He would gather the snacks, placing them carefully on the table, the bowls glistening in the low light. The figs, olives, cheese, and bread would be arranged with care, each item part of a greater whole. Sorry, He would take a moment to breathe, inhaling the medley of aromas surrounding him. The scent of olives mingling with the creaminess of cheese, the sweetness of figs dancing in the air, and the yeasty warmth of fresh bread. Slowly and gently, the servant would step away, allowing the senators to enter the room, their conversations already bubbling with anticipation. In this moment, he would feel a sense of calm wash over him. The hustle and bustle of the Senate, with its intricate scheduling and preferences, was merely a part of a greater tapestry. Each snack break represented a pause, a moment to nourish not only the body, but also the minds engaged in the weighty matters of the day. Wow, Hinty. and as the senators gathered, the servant would take his place, watching from the periphery, content in the knowledge that he had played a small but vital role in the unfolding of their daily lives. Wow, my. As the senators settled into their chairs, the atmosphere transformed into one of quiet expectation. It was a delicate balance of power and privilege, punctuated by the rustle of togas and the shift of bodies. The servant, standing aside, was a careful observer of this ritual, understanding the importance of timing, of etiquette, and of the minor details that brought this gathering to life. Oh, the table was set with precision, the bowls filled to a modest depth, ensuring an ample yet unobtrusive supply of snacks. Each bowl was crafted from clay, adorned with simple patterns that echoed the smoothness of Roman craftsmanship. They were not ornate, but they spoke of tradition, of humble beginnings, and the hands that shaped them. Slowly and gently, the servant noted the position of each item, ensuring that the figs were closest to the center, their natural sweetness a delightful prelude to the sharper flavors of the olives and cheese. Oh, me. Sorry. In the corner of his eye, he watched the senators reach for the first morsels. Their fingers moved with a certain grace, selecting the figs first, their skins taut and slightly cool to the touch. Each fig, plump and rich, held a promise of sustenance. The servant had learned the best way to select figs, looking for those that were soft yet firm, with a slight give when pressed. This was the perfect balance, a lesson learned over countless gatherings. As the senators indulged, the servant recalled the pricing of these items in the bustling marketplace of Rome. The figs, when in season, could be found for around 2 denarii per pound, a modest price considering their sweetness. The olives, slightly more at 3 denarii, were often sold in wooden barrels, their brine a testament to the skill of the vendor. The cheese, a creamy delicacy from nearby farms, could fetch 4 denarii for a modest wheel. He had learned to appreciate the economics of these small indulgences, understanding how they influenced the choices made at the table. The bread, the staple of any Roman meal, was a product of care and time, made from wheat flour. It was kneaded with gentle hands, the dough rising in a warm environment. The servant often took a moment to think of the baker, who at dawn would have begun the process. The dough, once risen, was shaped into loaves, each weighing approximately a pound. They would be baked in a clay oven, the heat wrapping around them, creating a crust that was both crisp and inviting. Each loaf would cost about 1 denarius, making it an accessible treat for the senators. As the senators enjoyed their snacks, the servant marveled at how these modest provisions could bring such joy, even amidst the heaviness of their discussions. The routine was familiar. They would munch quietly, discussing the matters at hand in hushed tones, punctuated by the crunch of bread and the soft murmurs of approval. Wow! With each passing moment, the servant felt the weight of time, knowing that the break would be brief. He kept a careful watch over the hourglass set upon the table, the fine grains of sand slipping slowly from one chamber to another. He had learned its rhythm. It took precisely 15 minutes for the hourglass to empty completely. At the 5-minute mark, he would discreetly refill the bowls, ensuring that the senators would not be left wanting. The act of refilling was a ritual in itself. He would approach the table, moving lightly on his feet, carefully avoiding any distraction. He had developed an intuitive sense of when to approach, gauging the senators' engagement with their discussions. He would take a moment to breathe, inhaling deeply, allowing the aromas to fill his lungs as he reached for the empty bowls. The figs would be replenished first, their sweetness a reminder of the lightness needed amidst their serious discourse. Next, he would add more olives, ensuring a balance of flavors. The cheese would follow, sliced into delicate wedges, perfect for sharing. The bread would be positioned last, the warmth still radiating from the loaves, inviting the senators to continue their snacking. The servant had learned to take care with the presentation, arranging the snacks artfully, as if each bowl were a small work of art. He would step back, admiring his work, before slipping away to the edges of the room once more. This was his dance, a gentle waltz between service and observation. And slowly and gently, he would allow himself to fade into the background, content in his role. The senators, however, were not always mindful of the time. Often they would linger, engrossed in spirited debate, the snacks forgotten for moments longer than intended. The servant would glance at the hourglass, feeling a slight twinge of anxiety, wishing to ensure that the schedule was upheld. He understood the delicate balance of time, how the rhythm of the day could be disrupted by an extended break. There was an etiquette to it all. Senators were expected to partake in the snacks, but they were equally bound by the gravity of their discussions. The servant had witnessed many a debate where the snacks remained untouched, the bowls slowly emptying while words flowed forth with fervor. He would remind himself that this was all part of the experience, that the snacks were but a backdrop to the more pressing matters of the Senate. It was this contradiction that fascinated him, the juxtaposition of nourishment and debate. The senators needed sustenance to fuel their minds, yet the very act of engaging in meaningful discourse often overshadowed their need for physical nourishment. The servant would sometimes chuckle to himself, thinking how the Romans could be so serious, yet so easily distracted by the simplest of pleasures. After the hourglass had run its course, the servant would prepare to clear the table. He would move with quiet efficiency, gathering the bowls and emptying any remaining contents into a larger vessel, a cherished wooden bowl that had seen many such gatherings. He would measure the leftovers, noting how many figs were left, how many olives remained, and how much cheese had been consumed. This meticulous recording was not merely for his own satisfaction, but a way to prepare for the next gathering. He understood that each meeting brought its own rhythm, its own preferences. Some senators preferred figs, while others favored cheese. By keeping track, he could anticipate their needs, ensuring that each break would be a little more perfect than the last. The storage of these items was equally important. The figs would be kept in a cool place, allowing them to retain their freshness, while the olives were stored in brine, their flavor preserved. The cheese, wrapped in cloth, was placed in a shaded area, keeping it from drying out. The bread, carefully wrapped in a linen cloth, was stored in a basket, its warmth gently cradled by the fabric. Through it all, the servant felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He was a part of a larger mechanism, a cog in the wheel of governance. His role, though small, was vital to maintaining the flow of the day. And as the senators departed from their break, returning to their discussions with renewed focus, he would stand quietly, breathing in the aftermath of their gathering. In this tranquil moment, he would feel the echoes of laughter, the soft rustle of togas, and the lingering aroma of snacks still hanging in the air. The rhythm of the day would continue to unfold, each moment a delicate balance of nourishment and debate, of silence and discourse. Slowly and gently, he would return to his duties, ready for the next round of sustenance, the next gathering of minds. And so, the cycle would continue, the mundane yet essential task of snack break scheduling, weaving seamlessly into the fabric of the Roman Senate. As the senators settled into their next session, the servant's duties expanded, ever so slightly, to include the careful monitoring of the time. He would glance up at the sun, its position in the sky offering a gentle guide to the rhythms of their day. He noted the way the light shifted, casting shadows that moved slowly across the marble floors, whispering the approach of another break. The timing of these breaks was not arbitrary. Each gathering of the Senate was structured with precision. The session would typically last for 2 hours, followed by a break of 15 minutes. This was a carefully calculated interval, allowing minds to rest, thoughts to coalesce, and appetites to awaken. The servant understood that he must be ready, each time, to provide sustenance that was both nourishing and conducive to continued deliberation. In preparation for this, he would gather his tools. A simple wooden tray, smooth from years of use, was his primary vessel. It had been stained with a deep, rich hue, the color of aged oak. On this tray, he arranged the selections of snacks with a meticulous hand. The olives, their dark sheen catching the light, were placed in a shallow dish. Each olive was carefully chosen, ensuring that they were plump and bursting with flavor. The choice of olives was significant. They were not merely a side snack, but a vital part of the Roman diet, rich in flavor and healthy fats. He then turned his attention to the bread, a staple of every meal. The bread was a large, round loaf, crusty on the outside and soft within. He would slice it into thick wedges, each piece measuring about 2 inches in width. This provided enough substance for a satisfying bite, while also being easy to handle. He layered the bread on the tray, ensuring that it was still warm, wrapped in its linen cloth to maintain that gentle heat. Next came the cheese, a beloved companion to the bread. The servant selected a soft cheese, slightly tangy, which had been aged for just the right amount of time. He cut it into small cubes, each piece approximately 1 inch in size. This way, they could be easily speared with fingers or enjoyed with the bread. The cheese was placed beside the bread, its texture contrasting the crusty crust, creating a delightful combination for the senators to enjoy. And then, he reached for the fruit. Figs, plump and sweet, were a favored choice. Each fig was carefully inspected, ensuring it was ripe, yet firm enough to withstand the handling of many hands. He arranged the figs in a small bowl, their deep purple skin glistening with moisture. The bowl was placed strategically on the tray, adding a splash of color that made the entire presentation more inviting. As he worked, he would often remind himself of the ritualistic nature of this process. The arrangement of snacks was not merely a task. It was a moment of peace amidst the chaos of political discourse. These small acts of preparation, the slicing and arranging, were meditative, allowing him to connect with the very essence of Roman life. In anna du ameni shildasai I saw dira. With everything prepared, he would take a moment to breathe deeply, inhaling the mingled aromas of bread, cheese, and fruit. The scents drifted upwards, creating a faint but welcoming cloud, a prelude to the senator's return. Each element of the snack had its own story. How the bread was baked in an oven heated by wood, how the cheese was crafted by local artisans, how the figs were harvested at the peak of ripeness. As he waited for the break to begin, he would often find solace in the knowledge that soon the senators would gather around his tray, their minds sharp and their appetites ready. The snack break was not just a pause. It was a moment of community, a chance for the senators to share small talk, to laugh lightly, and to recharge before diving back into the weighty matters of the day. Yendana, the servant was also well aware of the etiquette expected during these breaks. Senators would approach the tray with respect, reaching for the food as they engaged in light conversation. It was customary for the senior senator present to lead the gathering, offering the first piece of bread to another senator. This simple gesture, a sharing of food, was steeped in tradition, a reminder of the bonds they shared, even amidst their debates. Why? The senators would take their time, savoring each bite, allowing the flavors to linger. The servant noted how, sometimes, the discussions would shift from political matters to the simple joys of life. They would talk about the harvest, the weather, or the latest gossip from the marketplace. These conversations, although light, served to strengthen their connections, reminding them that beyond the titles and roles, they were indeed human. Wait. And then, when the break was nearing its end, the servant would begin to prepare for their return to discourse. He would wait, tray in hand, ready to collect any remnants of the gathering. The olives would often be half-finished, the bread consumed with great pleasure, and the figs, sometimes, would remain untouched. He would gently clear away any uneaten morsels, ensuring that the tray was left clean and presentable. Once the senators had returned to their seats, he would quietly step to the side, allowing the discussions to resume. In this space, he was an observer. He would listen to the flow of ideas, feeling a sense of pride in knowing that he had contributed to their focus, their ability to think clearly and speak confidently. His role was essential, yet often overlooked. The rhythm of the Senate was a dance, a careful balance of thought and sustenance. Each moment of debate was interwoven with the pauses for nourishment, a testament to the beauty of routine. As the servant settled into the background, he reflected on the day's schedule. This was merely one part of a larger cycle. After the next session, there would be another break, another opportunity to bring forth the snacks, to witness the senators come together in a moment of fellowship. The sun would cast shadows across the chamber once more, the light guiding him through this tranquil existence. Slowly and gently, the hours would unfold, the mundane intricacies of life in the Senate continuing with every bite, every discussion, every shared moment of humanity. There was comfort in this predictability, a soothing rhythm that lulled the mind and spirit alike. The servant would breathe deeply once more, letting the tranquility of the moment wash over him as the day stretched on, 1 minute, 1 hour at a time. As the senators resumed their discussions, the servant quietly prepared for the next intermission. He had learned to anticipate these moments, taking great care to ensure everything was just right. He had a collection of simple wooden trays, worn smooth by the touch of many hands. Each tray was roughly 3 feet long and 1 foot wide, the perfect size to hold an assortment of snacks. He would gather the tools required for this task: a small knife, a sturdy cutting board, and a cloth for wiping his hands. The knife had a gleaming blade, its edge well honed from years of use, while the cutting board had darkened, showing the marks of countless slices through fruits and cheeses. The cloth, soft and clean, would ensure that everything remained tidy, each morsel presented with care. The servant moved to the storage area, a cool, shaded corner of the chamber where provisions were kept. Here, he would find jars of olives, their briny scent filling the air, alongside small baskets containing bread. The bread was a simple fare, baked in the nearby kitchens, crusty and golden, each loaf weighing approximately 1 pound. He would take a moment to appreciate the texture of the bread, its crust giving way to a soft, airy interior. He would also gather some figs, sweet and plump, their dark skin glistening slightly in the soft light. Figs were a favorite among the senators. They were roughly the size of a small plum and could be eaten whole, their sweetness a welcome contrast to the savory offerings. Carefully, he counted out a dozen figs, placing them gently onto the tray, their smooth surfaces nestled next to the crusty bread. Next, he would select a small wheel of cheese, perhaps a sheep's milk variety, which was quite popular in the region. This cheese, about 6 inches in diameter and 2 inches thick, had a slightly tangy flavor, enhanced by the herbs sprinkled on its surface. He would slice it into small wedges, ensuring that each piece was uniform, about 2 inches long, to allow for easy sharing. The process was methodical, almost meditative, as he arranged the slices with precision. With the tray nearly complete, he would then turn to the olives. Each jar contained a mix of green and black olives, their glossy skins reflecting the light. He would pour a handful into a small dish, careful to select a variety of sizes, some plump and round, others smaller and wrinkled. The olives would add a salty contrast to the sweetness of the figs and the richness of the cheese. Once the tray was filled, bread, figs, cheese, and olives, he would step back to admire his work. The colors were vibrant, the earthy browns of the bread, the deep purples of the figs, the creamy yellows and whites of the cheese, and the shiny greens and blacks of the olives, all creating a harmonious tableau. He understood that presentation mattered. The senators were accustomed to a certain standard, and he took pride in meeting that expectation. The servant would gently carry the tray to the center of the chamber, carefully balancing it with both hands. The cool stone floor felt solid beneath his feet as he moved with practiced ease, navigating the space that had become familiar over the years. As he reached the table where the senators congregated, he would pause for a moment. It was customary to announce the arrival of the refreshments. His voice, soft and calm, would rise gently above the murmurs of discussion. "Your sustenance is served," he would say, a simple phrase that signaled a moment of respite amidst the earnest debates. The senators, weary from their deliberations, would turn their attention to the offerings. Gratitude would light their faces momentarily as they reached for the bread, tearing off pieces to share. Slowly, they would begin to sample the figs, the sweetness bringing a little brightness to their serious expressions. The servant would watch, content in his role as a facilitator of this simple pleasure. He would observe the etiquette that governed this moment. Senators would offer the first pieces of food to one another, a sign of respect and camaraderie. "Please, take a fig," one might say, while another would respond, "No, you first." Such exchanges, though mundane, were steeped in tradition, reinforcing bonds within the Senate, even as they debated the weighty matters of the day. Siwi. Once the initial rush had passed, he would return to the rear of the chamber, allowing the senators their time to enjoy. He would take a moment to breathe deeply, feeling the atmosphere shift from one of tension to ease. The sounds of conversation would soften, punctuated by the gentle sounds of snacks being enjoyed. Little by little, the conversations would transition away from the serious subjects that had preoccupied the senators. The snack breaks provided a welcome diversion, a chance to share not only food, but also stories and laughter. The servant would take note of the time. Each break lasted roughly 15 to 20 minutes, and he would prepare to quietly assist in the transition back to deliberation when the time came. And after a period of sustained enjoyment, he would gently approach the table once more. "Shall we return to our discussions?" he would ask, his voice barely rising above a whisper. The senators would nod, some still savoring the last bites of cheese or olives. With their attention returning to the matters at hand, he would begin to collect the empty trays, moving with a lightness that belied the weight of the responsibilities he carried. The trays would be returned to the storage area, where he would wash them in cool water, their surfaces glistening once more. Every action was deliberate, a continuation of the rhythm that governed the Senate. He would stack the trays neatly, ensuring that they were ready for the next intermission, the next opportunity to nourish both body and spirit. As the day stretched on, the servant found comfort in the predictability of his tasks, the simple acts of preparation, presentation, and cleanup. Each movement, each small detail was a part of a larger, serene cycle. He understood that these moments of respite were essential, not just for the senators, but for the very fabric of their discussions. Slowly and gently, he would allow himself to relax, breathing in the calm that enveloped the chamber. The murmurs of debate would become a backdrop, a soothing hum that accompanied him as he continued his work. The rhythm of the Senate was a gentle pulse, and he was an integral part of that steady heartbeat, one snack break at a time. As the hours of debate drifted lazily by, the senators would often find their minds wandering, their thoughts drifting like clouds across the vast expanse of the Roman sky. It was during these moments that the gentle reminder of the snack break would echo through the chamber. The servant knew it was nearly time for the next intermission, a brief escape from the weighty matters at hand. He would prepare the small wooden cart, its surface smooth and polished, a simple vehicle designed for the express purpose of carrying nourishment. The cart measured roughly 3 feet in length, with 2 sturdy wheels made of solid wood. He would inspect each wheel, ensuring they turned smoothly, gliding effortlessly across the marble floor. Each rotation was a gentle reminder of the flow of time, of the rhythm of the Senate. On the cart, he would lay out a pristine linen cloth, an ivory white that seemed to absorb the light around it. It would be perfectly arranged, with corners folded neatly, creating a surface that invited both eyes and hands. He would take a moment to admire how the cloth lay flat, its smoothness a stark contrast to the rough walls of the chamber, where the history of countless debates lingered, haunting like whispers in the air. Next came the selection of snacks. The servant would carefully choose a variety of items, each one a small offering to the senators. Fresh figs, their skins soft and slightly yielding to the touch, would be arranged in a shallow, round bowl. Each fig would be inspected for imperfections, ensuring only the ripest fruits were placed on display. He would count them, 1, 2, 3, until there were precisely 12 figs, a number that felt pleasing, balanced. Beside the figs, he would position small pieces of hard cheese, aged and crumbly. He would slice each piece into uniform cubes, measuring roughly 1 inch on each side. The cheese had a sharp aroma, rich and inviting. Each cube would be placed with care, creating a harmonious blend with the figs. The servant knew that the combination of sweetness and saltiness would delight the palate of the senators, offering them a moment of bliss amidst the heavy discussions. He would then place a small bowl of olives alongside the cheese, their deep green and black hues glistening in the soft light of the chamber. Each olive would be carefully pitted, a task that required gentle hands and patience. They would be arranged in a loose circle, their shapes contrasting with the more structured cubes of cheese. The servant always took a moment to appreciate the colors and textures before him, a small feast for the eyes as well as the body. With the main offerings complete, he would turn his attention to the beverage. Water, fresh and cool. He would pour it into a simple glass pitcher, the glass clear and unadorned, allowing the purity of the water to shine through. The pitcher would be filled to just below the rim, a careful measurement to avoid spills. He would weigh the pitcher lightly in his hands, feeling the coolness seep into his skin. Next, he'd prepare a series of small cups, each holding just a few ounces of water, enough to quench a fleeting thirst, yet not so much as to distract from the ongoing discussions. The servant would place the pitcher at the center of the cart, surrounded by the offerings, creating a serene tableau. He would take a moment to step back and view his work. The arrangement was balanced, inviting, and comforting. He felt a wave of satisfaction wash over him, knowing that this small act of preparation contributed to the well-being of the senators. Once everything was set, the servant would begin the gentle task of wheeling the cart toward the center of the chamber. The wheels would roll softly against the marble, a quiet sound, almost like a whisper. The senators, engaged in their discussions, would pause momentarily, their eyes drawn to the gentle presence of the cart. As he approached, he would announce the arrival of the snack break in a calm voice. "Esteemed senators, it is time for a brief intermission. Please help yourselves." His words floated through the air, a soft invitation to indulge in the simple pleasures laid out before them. Demon, the senators would rise slowly from their seats, stretching their limbs, shaking off the heaviness of the debates. Each senator would move deliberately, a rhythmic dance of bodies in the chamber. They would gather around the cart, their conversations softening to a gentle murmur. The servant would step aside, allowing them the space to engage both with the snacks and with one another. He would observe as they reached for figs first, those small fruits bursting with sweetness. Their laughter would fill the chamber, blending with the soft crunch of cheese and the briny pop of olives. Little by little, you would notice how the atmosphere shifted, how discussions became more animated yet relaxed. The snacks had a way of easing tensions, fostering camaraderie that was often lost in the weight of legislation. After a few moments, he would quietly refill any empty bowls, moving among the senators with the grace of someone who understood his place. The servant was not merely a helper. He was a facilitator of connection, a quiet force behind the scenes. Each refill was completed with care, ensuring that all remained satisfied, all felt embraced by the warmth of nourishment. With the cart nearly depleted, he would take the opportunity to reflect on the schedule of these breaks, pondering their peculiar timing. The Senate sessions were often long, stretching over several hours with little respite. The breaks were carefully timed, yet somehow they always seemed to arrive at the most inconvenient moments. Just as a senator would formulate a brilliant point, the call for a snack break would come, interrupting the flow of thought. Now, it was not uncommon for debates to resume with crumbs still lingering on the senators' lips, their minds still partially focused on the flavors they had just tasted. The servant chuckled to himself softly, realizing the irony of the situation. Here they were, a noble assembly, engaged in the weighty matters of state, yet their minds could easily be swayed by the simple pleasures of figs and cheese. After a time, when the cart was empty, the servant would gently guide it back to its resting place, reflecting on the cycle he had witnessed yet again. The senators would settle back into their seats, the hum of their discussions returning, now infused with the energy of shared sustenance. He would wash the used plates and glasses, returning them to their pristine state, ready for the next intermission. Oh, hey. Little by little, he would hear the sounds of debate return to their usual cadence, a rhythm that resonated within the chamber walls. As he washed each dish, he found a quiet pleasure in the routine, a peaceful moment amidst the bustling life of the Senate. Each soft splash of water was a reminder of the simple nature of his work. Each plate, an untouched canvas waiting to be filled once more. And so, the cycle would continue. The predictable rhythm of the snack breaks woven into the fabric of Senate life. The servant found comfort in this mundane task, the serenity of his work creating a calming backdrop to the debates that flowed around him. He understood the importance of these moments, the delicate balance between nourishment and discourse, and how they intertwined to create a harmonious atmosphere within the grand chamber of the Senate. Whoa. As the senators resumed their discussions, the servant continued his quiet work, methodically preparing for the next snack break. He would gather the necessary tools, each item carefully selected for its purpose. A set of wooden trays, smooth and warm to the touch, awaited his attention. Their surface was worn, each groove and mark telling a story of past meetings. These trays would hold a variety of simple snacks, selected to be both satisfying and not overly distracting. He knew from years of watching that the senators preferred items that could be consumed with minimal fuss, allowing the conversation to flow uninterrupted. He would begin by measuring out the quantities of the chosen snacks. A bowl of soft, creamy cheese, its surface glistening gently in the light, would need to be portioned carefully. He would take a small wooden spoon, its handle worn smooth from years of use, and scoop out neat servings. Each portion, about 2 ounces, would be placed in the center of a tray. He had learned to balance the amount with the knowledge of how many senators would be present during the next break. Too little, and there would be complaints. Too much, and the remnants would linger, a reminder of excess. Next, he would prepare small rounds of bread, fragrant and soft. The bread would be sliced evenly, each piece measuring about 4 inches in diameter. He would lay them beside the cheese, their golden crusts a pleasing contrast. The servant often thought about the origins of this bread, how it was baked each morning in a nearby bakery, its aroma wafting through the streets, enticing all who passed. He would make sure that each tray contained 6 slices, a number he had found to be just right for sharing. As he prepared, the servant would reflect on the importance of arrangement. It was not merely about filling trays, it was about presentation. He would position the cheese and bread with care, ensuring that the colors complemented one another. Next, he would sprinkle a handful of olives across the tray, their deep green hues adding a touch of vibrancy. Each olive, plump and glossy, would be placed with precision, 3 on each tray, a small indulgence that provided a burst of flavor without interrupting the senator's thoughts. The servant would then turn his attention to the drinks. He preferred a simple approach, for the senator's favored water or diluted wine during these brief respites. He would fill small cups, each holding about 3 ounces, just enough for a refreshing sip. The wine, light and slightly sweet, was stored in an earthenware jug, its surface cool against his fingertips. He would measure carefully, pouring just the right amount into each cup, ensuring that no drop was wasted. As he worked, he kept an eye on the time, aware of the delicate balance between preparation and the resumption of debate. Each snack break lasted approximately 15 minutes, a period that seemed both brief and fleeting. He often found himself wishing for a moment longer, but the routine of the Senate demanded punctuality. The senators would return, some still chewing, others sipping, while a few would be deep in thought, their minds already racing ahead to the next point of discussion. The servant would ensure that each tray was filled and ready, then carefully stack them for ease of transport. He had crafted a simple but effective method for carrying the trays, using a sturdy leather strap that he had fashioned himself. This strap allowed him to carry up to 4 trays at a time, balancing them effortlessly as he navigated the stone floors of the Senate. He had learned to move slowly and deliberately, avoiding any sudden movements that might disrupt the delicate balance of snacks above. Once the trays were prepared and stacked, he would take a moment to pause, resting his hands on the cool stone surface of the counter. He found solace in these moments of quiet, a brief opportunity to breathe and reflect. He would close his eyes for a heartbeat, allowing the sounds of the chamber, the rustling of scrolls, the murmur of voices, to wash over him, grounding him in the present. Little by little, he would release the tension that had accumulated in his shoulders. When the time approached for the snack break, he would walk slowly back into the chamber, the stacked trays held securely in his grip. The senators, engrossed in their discussions, often did not notice him enter, and he preferred it that way. He would place the trays on a long wooden table that stretched across the room, its polished surface reflecting the light of the flickering torches. This table was a gathering place, a bridge between ideas and nourishment, where senators would pause to recharge before diving back into the depths of their deliberations. As he laid out the trays, he noticed the subtle changes that occurred around him. The air shifted, becoming laden with the comforting scent of bread and cheese. He would step back, allowing the senators to approach the table at their leisure. Some would indulge eagerly, while others would take their time, savoring each bite as though it were a calculated part of their strategy. He found reassurance in this rhythm, knowing that the snack served as both sustenance and a moment of respite, a space where thoughts could coalesce amidst the chaos of debate. The servant would observe the senators as they selected their snacks. One senator, with a penchant for olives, would reach for them first, his fingers deftly plucking 3 from the tray. Another, favoring the bread, would stack 2 slices atop one another, creating a small sandwich of sorts. He noted who preferred what, the little quirks and habits that personalized each senator's approach to the break. As the break unfolded, he would remain in the background, content in his role as an observer and facilitator. He understood the importance of maintaining the flow of the Senate, how the nourishment provided an essential interlude in the ongoing discussions. Each senator, recharged by the simple act of eating, would eventually return to the table to continue their dialogue, their spirits lifted by the small pleasures provided. Little by little, the atmosphere would transform, the debates infused with a renewed sense of vigor and clarity. Once the break concluded, he would return to collect the used plates and cups, a gentle reminder of the cycle that would repeat itself. He would move with care, ensuring that the remnants of the meal were cleared without disrupting the conversations still taking place. The plates, once adorned with food, would now be empty, waiting patiently to be washed and prepared for the next gathering. The servant found satisfaction in this repetitive task, each washed dish a testament to the unbroken rhythm of Senate life. And as he washed each plate, he would feel a sense of connection to the senators, to the discussions that surrounded him. The cycle of nourishment and debate, of snack breaks and discussions, was a thread woven into the very fabric of their existence. Little by little, as he rinsed and scrubbed, he would allow himself to be enveloped in this tranquility, the simple act of cleaning becoming a form of meditation, a space where he could reflect on the day's events, the discussions that had unfolded, and the discussions that had unfolded, and the roles each senator played in this grand tapestry. Oh, bah. In this gentle exploration of the Roman Senate's snack break scheduling, we have wandered through the quiet corridors of history, observing the delicate balance between debate and nourishment. We reflected on how senators, amid the weight of their discussions, often found themselves distracted by the simple act of munching, as they tried to coordinate the perfect moments for both deliberation and light refreshments. We recognized the curious irony that, despite their best efforts, the timing always seemed just a little bit askew. As we settle into the soft embrace of night, imagine a quiet room where the air is calm, the body is relaxed, and every gentle breath brings a sense of peace. If you enjoyed this soothing journey through history, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing your thoughts in the comments. And remember to turn on loop so the gentle cadence of this story can cradle you into deeper relaxation.